Action.
Art as humans laughing at the face of death. It is humans saying that we are going to exist despite you. And he continued to say that every monument, every museum, that's a middle finger to death. That is Masai Sepuru, who's going to be my guest today. Lina lame ke Kabelo SirGift Kgang. This is the Thinking Inc. podcast. My guest is the man that I think he is very far ahead, light years ahead in terms of thinking. Masai Sepuru. Masai, thank you so much for joining me, my brother.
Hey man, thank you for having me. That was dope.
How are you feeling?
I'm good.
Actually, in my mind, it was actually doper than what I actually did. But the thing is that I'm in the presence of greatness. So that thing in your head, you're like, I'm going to do this.
No, man. Thank you, though. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Initially, I was thinking, Jorge, I am going to break the ice by asking you, Jorge, who won between Kendrick and Drake. And then I realized, Jorge, this is probably going to set the tone for the interview. We're probably not going to like each other. Nalo Masai.
I think hip hop lost. I think a lot of people think hip hop won, and because like it's a beef, sort of stadium. People sort of see hip hop as this combat sport, which it is. But I think, especially when two giants fight, it's usually like the ants who suffered. During that time, there wasn't a lot of talks about new artists, and no one could drop at that moment. You know what I mean? Because these gentlemen are hurling insults at each other. I'm not very big on beef. I'm not. It's not something that I sort of like relish. I actually actively avoided it when everybody was dropping. So I was like, I'm more interested in like what the new artists have. I think there's a spot for that. I think there is like battle rap. If you really want to do it, just go on stage, do battle rap and then let it end there. But if you're going to go in studio and insult after insult, accusation after accusation, and especially as big as you are, I mean, at the end of the day, Kendrick will not lose fans, Drake will not lose fans. But the people that had scheduled to drop during that period, you know what I mean, they had to reshuffle their life. And I was just like, that's quite unfortunate. But yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't care.
Yeah. I think that's a beautiful answer. A funny thing is that there is this notion, I think probably from people who are conspiracy theorists, they sometimes believe that whenever something of this sort happens, it's sort of like there's like a mission to. I think Dave Chappelle once spoke about it. Every time there's a war in America or there's something, they're gonna release a scandal. Hey, Michael Jackson did 1 2 3 1 2 3. So and so did 1 2 3 1 2 3, and then it's sort of like we move our focus, and then we like, this is the new thing, because for a moment we forget.
I don't think that the beef itself was staged. I think it was long overdue. But I think if it is not staged, it's definitely an opportunity for people to do some shady shit, behind that. You know what I mean? So, in the midst of that, you can, when you see that is happening, you take that as an opportunity to do other weird stuff. You know what I mean? And I don't know, man. I think hip hop had moved past that, and it was creating other types of music, and then now it just went back into these giant. It felt awkward because I listened to both artists. I listened to all three artists: J. Cole and Kendrick and Drake and all of them. You know what I mean? And when that happens, it's just like, this is awkward. But also, I think the reason I cannot have a definite winner is because I don't invest my time with their personal lives. And that beef was definitely rooted in personal lives. You know what I mean? I never know or care who Kendrick is dating or Drake is dating or when, what they're doing with who. The music that one comes out like, this is why I'm here. I never really I'd never indulge in that. So when someone says this person did that, it doesn't land as hard because I don't care. I just like waste the music, you know what I mean? But again, that's a personal thing. I think it's necessary for those who like K-pop in that way. I just like music in general, and I don't see it in any other genres where like a jazz artist throwing a trombone at the other one. It's usually like either they work with each other or they just, they don't work with each other, and I would like that for hip hop, for it to grow. I think it's a beautiful genre and it has potential. Then it can reach the masses more than other genres can, because it's not limited by the range of the voice. You can just recite poetry and rhyme and say whatever you can. This is a rabbit hole. We can talk about this forever.
That's a thing. That's why I didn't want to. But I think I probably share your sentiment. But I think at the same time they had an opportunity to reinvent themselves, to remind people of who they are, because I saw a lot of people actually went back to listen to the body of work that was Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, because a lot of people, when Kendrick dropped that album, they didn't understand what was happening.
Exactly.
So a lot of people were starting to gravitate towards Kendrick, even though it was in a response to hating Drake. But then when they found the album, they were like, oh my God, we actually missed out on a masterpiece, Speaking of that, I'm a huge fan of poetry.
Word.
But I never understood the idea of slam, and you are a slam master. And I think at some point you held the two titles. I think because now only got exposed to you here, the Joburg side, but at some point you were like dominating Pretoria.
4 titles.
And then 4. What is slam? Like, is it different to like?
I think slam. It's just like, words gymnastics, really, But I think in South Africa, I cannot compare with South African slam with like other slams, because South African slam is like way ahead. The writers are insane down here. I think it's just a place where poetry could exist frequently. I think there isn't as many open mic places for poetry to exist, and slam houses or organizations that organizes slam, they give us that opportunity to sort of frequently show poetry. As much as there's a competition and a competitive nature about it, I think more importantly is that there's poetry being spoken somewhere at a specific day every month. You know what I mean? And that's something that I take away from it. The winning is fun. I don't lie. I'm very competitive when it comes to slam, but more than anything, I just like a place where people can frequently visit and experience and enjoy poetry. And it's very difficult to judge a slam, because like people come with different styles, different topics, and sometimes the different judges, and you can never take away the subjectiveness of it. You know what I mean? Everybody's subjective on who's supposed to win. It's only a few slams where everybody knows like that guy won. You know what I mean? It's only a few, but most of them, it's in question. That guy should have won. That guy should have won. It's So I never really see it as that thing. I just see it as an opportunity for a lot of poets to go and showcase their work and experience each other's poetry. There isn't a very strong open mic poetry. Just poetry spaces. And I think slam, shout out Word and Sound, shout out Speak Out Loud, and so those are, and CSP, and those are like sort of in Joburg. I think now there's another one in Cape Town. The name, can't remember it just now, but there's another one in Cape Town. But it's just that, man. It's just a place for poets to, showcase. Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. You are a versatile polymath. Yeah, you are. But I'm interested to know gore kgang ya gore o nne artist simolotse guy, like where did it begin? And also I'm very interested to know what actually came first. I think this would actually be an opportunity as well to tell people, the new audience, because I know you've probably answered this question before, who is Masai and what is it exactly that you do?
When you say came first, I just want to understand, came first between what and what? Like all the things that I do?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I've always say that I did not become an artist. I just didn't become anything else. To say that, it means I've always been an artist. You know what I mean? I think I was born an artist. I didn't become an artist. I was just refused to choose to be other things and just continued as a journey as an artist. There's no point in my life where I can look back and say, aha. I've always known. I've always been musical. I've always loved music, loved singing, loved creating my own music. I've always loved telling stories. And if I have to choose which one came first between music and storytelling, it depends, you know what I mean? But those two are the one that stuck, you know. So everything else that I do satisfies those two, you know what I mean? It's been because I'm a painter, I'm a fine artist, I'm a scriptwriter, I am a poet, I do music. There's some things I'm forgetting right now. Oh, I'm an art director. All of those things are
graduate as well.
Shut up. All of those things are just an attempt to tell stories. And I think I'm a storyteller, and I think I look around and I see pockets of society that are sort of dark, and I just want to shine the light on them. You know what I mean? And says, hey, this is also happening, and oh, have you considered this? You know what I mean? I've always been very inquisitive as a child, and that hasn't changed, you know, even now. I'm a very curious person, interrogating very complex abstracts about society and seeing how the human brain works and how humans work with each other, how humans behave when they're together and how humans behave when they're alone. So those are sort of the things that fascinates me, and I use those to sort of mold my stories, either through painting, poetry, script writing, film, theater, whatever it is that I do. So I'm trying to tell stories. Even in the poetry itself, I think that's what people sort of gravitate towards my poetry, because of the stories and the things that they relate more to the stories, you know what I mean? And they're like, I felt this, or I know this person, I know what I mean.
You are from a village called Makgofe. There's a quote that I have here. I don't even remember from which poem did I take this. It was very interesting. You said, where I'm from, you can sell lightning in a teacup. And then you said, you laugh at such skills to blend element at will, to be this intimate with nature. So I'd love to know, of course, when I read this as a fellow Limpopian, I'm like, this is dope, because we are known for that.
Exactly.
You know. But before we get into that, I want to know, how did Makgofe shape the person that you are? Because at some point you wrote about the lack of exposure, the lack of, certain things. I think it's the same with me. You just like were limited to certain options, but I'd like to know the role that it played.
Makgofe is an interesting place because it's sort of not so far from like the urban areas. It's not so far from the city Polokwane, and it's also not so far from like the rural areas. So it's like this foster child in the between. So you sort of get the knowledge of the village, and you also get the knowledge of the city at the same time. It's sort of like a melting pot, because like people from the city, when they move, they don't want to move too far back, so they land in Makgofe, and people from the villages, they don't want to move too far into the city, so they land in Makgofe. And you have all these different families, cultures, surnames, speaking different languages, and just living close to each other. All different types of like Sepedi speaking people, but also just there. So you find people from all across Limpopo living in areas like Makgofe, you know what I mean? And that sort of shaped me, because I've privilege of perspective. Makgofe gave me a lot of perspective, gave me a lot of characters. Also, it allowed me to be both urban and village at the same time. It afforded me the ability to even communicate with the language that we're using now. And I think it isn't, growing up it was like that. I think now it is sort of developed a little more. Is to say it's a village now, people are like, huh? You know what I mean? But when it's sort of like it's a very weird place, you know what I mean, position wise, you know. Yeah, and I think that positioned me to be this artist that I am right now.
Yeah,
it was a very interesting upbringing. It presented to me an opportunity to interrogate the world because of the characters that lived there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In one house, there's a big house at the corner, and in another street, there's like a shack, and then another one, there's like a rendezvous, and then another. It's just like a very interesting place.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
So the quote that I just read here, where I'm from, you can sell lightning in a teacup. You know, those are the kind of things that we in Limpopo you grow up hearing. I am going to tell you the stories that I heard, but I'm just interested to know what do you make of the idea of witchcraft? Now, depending on some days, I think of it as this evil thing, you know, but on some days when I'm not too what's the word? You know, like usually I get like we look at the world from perspective of good and evil.
Yes.
You know, but when I read this thing or when I heard you saying it, I'm like, it goes back to some of the thoughts that I sometimes think of witchcraft as a lost art or as a hidden sort of art. So I'm interested to know what do you think of it?
I love where I'm from.
Yeah.
I'll defend it tooth and nail every time. And when someone hurdles insults about Limpopo, I'll be the first one to jump like, hey, you know what I mean? And obviously there was a stereotype of witchcraft, you know, tied in with Limpopo and saying all of these things about like, people in Limpopo can fly with a bread and people in Limpopo can, you know, sell lightning in a teacup. People in Limpopo could, you know, shift into other creatures and do witchcrafty things. And I'm just like, the way they say these things, it's all as though like they are insults. I'm like, you're saying these people could fly. I think that's a flex. I think when you say people could sell lightning in a teacup, I think that's a flex. You know what I mean? And there are individuals that are known for these supernatural powers in Limpopo. You know, not even a secret, like just famously, like the Queen Mojaji, you know what I mean, the Rain Queen.
Yeah.
These are known practices in Limpopo, and to see them and to reduce them as merely as witchcraft, and not to deny witchcraft, it is there. I think witchcraft is more, it has to do with intent than, you know, the action itself. I think some acts of jealousy could just lead to witchcraft. Witchcraft does not necessarily have to be supernatural. You know what I mean? Some people do very witchy stuff to friends and family members, and they had nothing to do with like, you know, the art itself. You know, I think it's more about intent.
Yeah.
But I think other people could use that intent for not even like for good or whatever reason, because I don't have access to that, you know. But I just know that you could use it to heal, you could use it to educate, you could use it to tell stories, you could use it for many other things. And if people can fly, if I could fly, there's no one who can shame me. There's no one who can shame me into not flying, or you know what I mean, capturing lightning in a teacup. There's no one who can shame me about that. Like that's why the poem was from. It was sort of like a head back. It's like the things that you're saying are more flexes than anything. You know what I mean? Like, you guys can transform into cats. I can transform into a cat. That's crazy. You know what I mean? You guys can talk to owls. You mean, you know? So
it's a craft.
It's like it's a witchcraft. Like it's not as, you know, as dark as you think it is. I think it's more of a flex. I think you're praising me more than you're insulting me. Actually, and also just trying to instill the pride in the people from the north. You know what I mean? And also not sort of feel little when they enter these conversations and these pedestrian conversations about being called like witches, whatever. It's not to feel small. Also take pride in the fact that your people are capable of doing these sort of things, and that's where sort of I come from. That's where the poem itself comes from. And then it developed into the other one called Black Magic and Dark Magic. And it developed into its own play, sort of interrogating this, especially like the African technology. I don't just reduce to black, but African technology and ancient knowledges, and really not, you know, putting them at the back just, you know, to satisfy Western and modern thinking.
It is that. And I think as people, you know, we are later going to talk about your play, the tragedy of Samuel.
Yeah.
So it's one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot. There's so much that we don't know, and what we do is that we are quick on labeling things, you know. Back at home, there's it's also in Limpopo. It's a village called Gaseleka. You know, something weird would happen. So a wind would come, rain, and then all of a sudden it disappears. And then you hear the whispers of elders, and then like I'd be like inquisitive to know how did they do that, you know? And then the elders would let me in on the secret. No, there are people in the village, although we don't know who they are, they are able to see if bad weather is coming or a storm is coming, you know, which is like it's very rare you hear there was a storm in Limpopo, you know. But in some moment, you're going to say, oh, this rain, something weird is going to happen, and all of a sudden it disappears, you know.
It just disappears. That's beautiful. I think it's beautiful that people, either true or not, but if it's rooted in the culture and people genuinely believe that that is possible. And I think people who have that type of identity should hold on to it. You know what I mean? And I've also have personal experiences with such, you know, things. And I think it gives me access to can write about these things. I don't want to like project and tell people these things to be true or not. I think it's just personal experiences. If you listen to the poetry, either you take it literally or you do not, that's up to you. I just know that it's from somewhere.
And then I think sometimes we just want to, you know, science can like explain almost everything, and sometimes it can explain away certain things that we do not understand, you know. I'm also not going to say this thing does exist or it's not, but from personal experience, or depending on the day, I'm gonna be like, yeah, that thing is there.
Exactly.
And then someday I'm gonna be like, no.
Allow yourself to be, you know, for your mind to be malleable.
I want to. Speaking of malleability, I want to read something that you wrote. You used to camp a lot on your Facebook, I think probably 2020 to 21.
I apologize for whatever you've been experiencing on my Facebook.
I enjoy the humor. I enjoy you're one person who's not afraid to question certain things that we are afraid to question. You know, so I'm going to read this. It's a long Facebook post.
Go.
I'm pretty sure you're going to recognize this one because I didn't tell you which one was it. My problem and I suppose most artists' problem is instead of dealing with our issues, we choose to make art out of them. One might argue that making art is dealing with our issues. No, it is not. Dealing with our issues is dealing with our issues. Making art is making art. There's a reason there are professionals. Go see someone. Poetry cannot cure depression, maybe aid, but not cure. A song will make people care about your problems. They might dance to your problems though. And for a moment, that might feel good, but that is not a solution. It is a distraction. Having your painting in a gallery costing 50,000, which is what Masai is painting, costing from 50,000, is not a solution to what is on the canvas. Trust me, I've been screaming I'm a shack on fire, which is a reference to his poem Chaos, now for years. And all that has got me is applause, gigs, and few trophies. The fire is still there, like I say in the poem. Sometimes I forget it is there. Like I say in the poem, sometimes I forget it is there. The applause makes me forget the gigs, the money. Then unless someone touched me, and to be more accurate, I touched them. Then you realize none of the trophies matter if you are a hazard to yourself and to your loved one. And then there's another one. It's a short one. You questioned has theater become trauma Olympics, you know? And I'm just wondering, do you still feel the same? And also, I'd like to know, what do you think the world would look like if every artist had a therapist?
If every artist have a therapist,
because I think as a society probably we just love watching people.
That's a very interesting question. If every artist had a therapist, I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know because like I've heard a lot of artists explain their artistic process, and it has to do a lot with their traumatic experiences. And they create from that angle, most of them. And I suppose I was actually thinking about it just today, about the idea of trauma, and then how everyone that I've met has a traumatic experience, and not to belittle it, but there is so much of it that it's almost like a scar that everybody have. You know what I mean? Like, we all have it. So the cure, not the cure, but the remedy for it is to stop seeing it as this important thing that happened to you as an individual. I think everybody has some type of level of trauma somewhere, somehow. And it shouldn't put some weight on you thinking that you are singled out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that helps. So you can still create from it. You can still interrogate it. You can still try to stop that, from happening to other people, because it already happened to you. You could see a therapist, whatever. You could do all of these things, but you cannot think that it's an individual experience. You know what I mean? And that you're singled out. It helps to know that there are some people and finding help. And the fact that there is existence of therapists, and it shows that there's other people that have gone through with the thing. It doesn't solve it, but I think in my own experience, my personal experience, it lessened the weight. It made me like, you know what I mean? And it's a weird thing to admit to yourself that, I'm not special after all. And then it is that lack of specialness that helps you, with the journey, because then you find other people like you start to communicate with those people, you either seek professional help, and it helps. So if the world, if every artist had a therapist, I don't think it will be all that different, because they will always have access to their trauma, but they will deal with it in a more healthier way, not as a way of escaping their trauma, but also as a way of interrogating it. I think it would help, because that's what I do. I create. If I'm gonna reference something that happened to me, I don't use it as an escape or use it as something that's weighing me down. I'm using it as, I'm interrogating something. You know what I mean? I'm questioning something.
Yeah. Something happened back in I think it was probably 2018 or 2019.
Yeah.
It was Word and Sound. So a lot of you guys were performing. Most of your poems were very, very, very dark at the time. And one of it was sort of like, what's happening here? You know? And then one of the poet, I don't remember who was it, but I think it was Jonathan.
Dope poet.
Yeah.
Jonathan Lefenya.
Yeah. Now you have a great relationship with him.
No, because he's a great person. I have to be around great people.
Of course. I think he was the last one to perform on that day. And then Mutla Mutibe did
Also
something.
Poet,
And then he went there. He was like, "Bro, are you okay?" You know? And then I think for a moment he took a mic. Or, okay, guys, it's okay. We're doing poems here.
Yes.
It's dope. It's amazing. But you should come and talk to us.
Yes.
You know? I don't know. What do you make of that?
From the thing you read from me, I think the art itself doesn't necessarily do much if you don't seek professional help or if you don't speak about it. You have to find a way to communicate those things. Sometimes you would go to a slam or an open mic and then it's just dark. It's just like, you know what I mean? And that could be coincidence or whatever, but for whatever reason, I think I remember that day as well. But for whatever reason, I mean, just don't indulge, Don't indulge in the pain, don't indulge into the trauma. Try not to indulge, I suppose. Let me not say don't indulge as there's an easy thing. Try not to indulge. Try not to make it a part of your personality. It's just something that you've gone through, and because you survived it, it tells more about you than the fact that you went through it.
I think we just have to understand, okay, I'm this way because of that thing, and
I survived it because I'm this person. You know what I mean? So it's actually the other way around sometimes. The fact that I survived this thing, you know what I mean, proves something about me. The thing didn't make me. You know what I mean? I survived it because I'm me. You know what I mean? A lot of people have gone through the same thing, and either they either perished or choose a different route, or it collapsed them. You survived it and you went through it. That tells more about you. You did not shape you. You know what I mean? And you survived it because you are you. You know, and don't think that you would have been, I don't know, lesser than had you not gone through the thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this idea that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, it's actually, I was already strong, and that's why it didn't kill me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think of the idea that pain and what's the word? I think it's melancholy. It makes art to be more appealing, and it's sort of like beautiful. I think we gravitate towards painful poems, which I'm yet to read some of those from you.
I think yeah. It's because we all go through it.
Yeah,
I think we all go through it, and that's why it's more relatable. I think we all go through it, but because it is coated in shame, is coated in defeat and failure, all of those things, we don't speak about them like we would our achievements.
Yeah.
So because they're hidden, when you hear someone, and a poet, a musician, a painter, express that, have the confidence to go out and say, hey, look at it feels more beautiful to you, because not only do you appreciate the work itself, but you also appreciate the bravery. You appreciate their effort, and you appreciate their the position that they've put. You appreciate their vulnerability. Aside from the work itself, there's that, I cannot believe this person is actually saying these things. You know what I mean? And then they say them so beautifully. I think pain and melancholy, all of those things, they're as much as beautiful as not beautiful. They're as frequent as love, and they're as frequent as success. They're as frequent as friendship, but they're not as expressed, because again, they're coated in shame, they're coated in failure, they're coated in disappointment, so we don't express them. You know what I mean? So when someone goes out of their way to say these things, it's just like, you know what I mean, you appreciate that vulnerability, and you feel seen. You feel like, oh, I'm not alone, or this person gets me, or whatever. So that's why I think they sort of stands out mostly in like art more, because in everything else is actually expressed by ourselves. When I succeed, you will know on my post. When I'm in love, you'll know. When whatever, I make those feelings known. The ones that I make sure that they remain a secret, artists pull them out of us.
We wear them on our sleeves.
Yeah, exactly. Jesus Christ.
Your poems about love are mostly synonymous with betrayal. I'm going to read one of my favorite poems. We actually had a conversation about this before the podcast, before we went on air. But I'm pretty sure probably somewhere I got the errors, because I was writing it as I was listening to it.
That's all right.
Speaking of which, when are you going to be releasing your written material? Is it something that
I've been thinking about it quite a lot. There is a blessing and a curse to be practicing in multiple disciplines. Sometimes other things take up more time. Excuse me. And also because I live in a capitalistic, society, and I have to oblige by the rules of the land. Rent is due, and food has to be bought, and all of those things. So unfortunately, you find yourself, and I'm trying to get out of that loop, out of that tornado, you find yourself gravitating towards the things that bring the money, not the quickest, but that bring the money the most. And self-publishing, as much as it will take more from me, in terms of it will take so much time from everything else that I do, because it will require writing and rewriting and editing, and then sending it to editors, and then bringing it back and choosing. So I would need to find a specific, this also could potentially just be a big excuse, but effectively it doesn't make it any less true that it will require that much time from me. But I really much like to release a collection of poems, and then a collection of plays. I do it separately. And then I think it's high time I do that.
Love that. One more question before I read this. Most of the time when I watch your performance, there is either a little bit of a chant that you do, or a song that you do. It's as if you are tapping into another realm before you deliver this poem. Can you speak a little bit about that before I read this poem?
I think a lot of artists would, if you have a conversation with an artist long enough, will eventually arrive to the same answer, that the art itself is given. They are just vessels. They are just portals from one realm to your realm. Every artist will say this at some point. You know what I mean? There's the access of the poetry and the music sometimes cannot be explained on where exactly does it come from. Sometimes the poem just comes pre-written, and you just you know what I mean, copy and paste it from wherever it comes from, and you put it down on paper. And other poets have the privilege of dwelling into that space far more than I can, because again, I tap in and out a lot, because now I'm on stage, and at the same time, I'm probably the one who organized the event to begin with, and I'm probably thinking about painting and writing scripts and what I'm going to do next week. There's a lot going on into my head, and the chants and the music itself are sort of me finding the frequency of where that work came from, trying to tap into that frequency, and then aligning myself. It's like, oh, this is where I was when this first came to me. You know what I mean? And also trying to serve it correctly. It used to be like a private practice. I would do it off stage. Probably early works when I was probably doing word and sound. There was none of that. You know what I mean? And because it was private, I would walk off stage. I would walk away before I'm called and prepare myself. But now I feel that let me show the audience what goes into the process of tapping into that realm or that space. Also, for me, stage is very sacred. It's a very holy space, because it's a very dangerous space as well for a performer, any type of performer, music, acting, whatever, because you're tapping into something. You're leaving yourself, you know, on the side of the stage, and this other thing walks and performs. And you have to be very strong, because your body is, I don't want to use the word possessed, but it's possessed by the idea itself. Other things can possess it while you're on stage, because you are very vulnerable. You're very, very vulnerable. Actors, after they perform very long, they have to tap out or whatever. You're basically an empty vessel, and that is very easy for, not an empty vessel, an open portal. And because it's open, things can come out, things can go in, and that's, when you're on stage, and when you're doing your work honestly, you know, an honest performer, you know, a true artist, you are very exposed, you know, very vulnerable. So I have to allow my body and ask it, we're about to do that thing again. And the singing and the chanting and all of that helps. And also the type of the work that I do. Another thing is the fact that there's like over 100 people in the audience. There's 100 energies, 100 spirits just open, ready to receive. And you can easily be pulled in, you know. And it might not happen at the moment of the performance. It might happen a week later. It's just exhaustion. You know what I mean? And there's all performers go through it. It's just tiredness. And it's because just yesterday you gave yourself to a, you know. And also worse is now you have to put it online. Millions of people now have experienced it and have experienced you. And you just feel this exhaustion because you are carrying these spaces, these spirits and these individuals with you. And they're just like, and also worse is when they know your poem and then they say it back to you. Again, that thing where it comes in, you know what I mean? The portal is open, things are going in, things are going out. I have to secure myself, I have to sink my feet with the space, on the space, and really connect and really be ready for whatever they're going to throw at me. Because afterwards I'm like, thank you. Oh, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. Like nothing just happened. Just like 5 minutes ago. Yeah.
Speaking of artists saying your poems back at you, I figured that's why you hardly perform Chaos, which I'm going to ask you to perform later. There's a comedian, I'm not sure whether you know him. His name is Ali Siddiq.
Yes.
Yeah, Ali Siddiq recently came out of prison.
Yes.
Yeah, so there is a show called This Thing Has Never Happened. So basically they just go there and then they tell stories, like the wildest of stories.
Yeah.
So he has this joke called Mexican on Boots. Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, so he stopped performing that thing because in the middle of a set, while he's still busy performing something, somebody's going to scream like, perform Mexicans on Boots. And then when he tries to do it, like the whole audience is going to like do it with him.
I know that joke.
Yeah, so it sort of like makes sense. Anyway, let me get back to his favorite poem of mine.
Which one is this one?
Gallery.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
It obviously starts with the song Hide Your Tears. I don't let them see you cry. The world has no room for weak men. And then you get into it. I was your canvas and you were the painter. Together we made art. I loved the way you looked at me with such hope, like I had potential to be something great. I did not know that you were an expressionist. You saw my pureness as an opportune moment to let loose your demons. I became a place where you spilled your blood reds and your blues from your past lovers. When we first met, I said I would love all of your shades, but I've never seen you when you were brighter. You only come to me when you needed healing, I suppose. And then when you come, you'd use my bed as an easel. You perform all your shades of gray. My room was a gallery where you displaced your pain. Then towards the end, it says that it was the day when I came to your place and I saw paint on the floor that you've never used on me before. And I knew I was not your only canvas. There's a part where I'm like, yeah. Damn, bro. And then you say you go further to say that now I am in the shower trying to wash you away, scrubbing your magentas beneath my feet. Your maroons are stuck between my nails. My new lover won't understand why I'm this blue. Before we started this conversation, you actually asked me, Jorge, why do I love this poem so much? And I told you, Jorge, I resonate with this poem in a way, Jorge. It's sort of like love, especially these days. It's synonymous with betrayal. It's sort of like it's inevitable. And you say in this poem, Jorge, you were like at a place where you're thinking, I am the one here, you know, loving this person. And, you know, like when a lady or a guy come into your life and then they see this potential and you allow them, you open that pot that you were speaking about, you know, you're like, okay, for me to like, I have to open myself up, and then at the end of the day they tend to betray you. You know, can you tell me about the writing process of this poem, and then also the headspace, and then also how much of you being a painter, always playing with canvas and paint, came into influence when writing this poem?
That was one of the easiest poems I wrote, and one of the quickest poems I wrote. And I'd written it and I performed it and I forgot about it and I moved on with my life. For me, it wasn't, I've never said this publicly, but it's never that deep, you know? It was in terms of like conceptualizing it and writing it and thinking about what is, you know, what it potentially mean. But I'm just saying in my personal and what I was going through whilst writing it, it wasn't that, you know, complex. It was sort of, again, interrogating these idea of love and lovers who don't bring all of, you know, themselves in a relationship, just parts of themselves. They bring it into the relationship and then they show other parts to other people. And then it's just what made me wonder as a painter, if there is these bright and highlighted colors, where do we show these other dark, you know, things? Because, and then I wrote it from the perspective of someone who's sort of experiencing the love from someone who is showing other colors somewhere else, and then they seem to be this open canvas to express this, you know, dark shades, you know. And I don't want to write it like as criticizing the other lover, but also just looking around and says, I just went through that, you know. And a lot of us go through things with people where we feel like where you feel like you're going through a phase, you know what I mean, with someone else's life. You know what I mean? They are going through a phase and you just get caught in the wind.
Happen to be there.
It's just, exactly, you just happen to be there. And we all, vice versa, man. Sometimes we are going through something and someone lands into our life and we are at our worst. You know what I mean? And the worst is the only thing that we can present because that's how we feel in the moment. And then they just happen to be the person that go through it. It's unfair, but it's not uncommon. You know what I mean? It's there. We've all experienced it. We've all seen it. I wasn't necessarily going through it whilst writing gallery. I was actually also trying to do like a writing prompt or writing exercise, trying to merge my two disciplines with something we spoke about that I do quite a lot. Trying to merge poetry with stage, poetry with painting, poetry with performance, poetry with music, music with painting. That was the writing exercise where gallery sort of came from. It's an old poem, so I was also starting into my painting journey, understanding what painting, the texture, the colors, color theory, And all of that sort of, this whirlwind of ideas formed gallery. It was very quick. I think it was just, I don't write. Sometimes it takes me a very long time, like months, sometimes a year to finish a poem. Like a day or two when I wrote gallery.
Yeah.
And it's such an amazing thing where a lot of people love gallery. And it goes back to that thing I was telling you about earlier, is that a lot of artists will admit, like, bruh, I'm just a vessel, bruh. I'm just the portal. That thing came through me. I wrote it. I put it into the world, and people related with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And yeah, I was very early, and I wish I'd known the impact it would have had when I was starting.
Yeah.
Maybe I would have dealt with it with more sensitivity. But I think I tried my best. I don't think the performance, the one that you're probably referencing, there was that level of sensitivity towards it. Because I never disrespect my art.
Yeah.
Even on stage. So maybe people related to it in that way. But it's not that deep, man.
It's probably not. Maybe for you.
It wasn't to me. I mean, it wasn't. I get it now. Now because it has resurfaced.
Yeah.
And it's one of the poems that is, I think, was on probably, I don't know, 11 million views, I think, now.
Probably 17. I think the last time I checked it was on 17.
So it is resurfaced now. It's on 17 million views. I'm just like, hey, man, here's a poem.
Yeah.
And I didn't know when I was reciting it, but that's the thing about poetry and art. You never know when you create it.
Yeah.
So you never create for that. You know what I mean? So you just create it like any other of your works, and you love it, and you present it to the world. Some people have never heard Chaos.
Yeah.
Probably today might be the first time they hear it. Some people have never heard Sunless Fathers, Lost at Sea, My New Material, Black Boy Magic. They've never heard of these things.
Yeah.
And they might catch fire tomorrow. They might catch fire never. I don't have control of this. All I can do is just, deliver them with care and sensitivity to the world, and saying, hey, man, I have this thing that, the universe has offered, and I'm trying to, like,
as a vassal.
Yeah, I'm just like, hey, man, there's this thing.
It's obviously so many things that you can take out from that poem, in as much as when you don't think what it's that deep. That last line, I think we spoke about it when you say, my new love is not going to understand why I'm this blue. It helps to contextualize things, relationships. It's sort of like when you get into a relationship these days, one of the things that you have to interrogate, or you have to find out, you generally have to find out if this person had, like, a person that they consider to be their genuine lover before you, because of chances are the next person that is going to come into their life, they're probably going to be judged by whatever that previous person did. You suffer the wrath of something that you don't understand, and then you realize, this thing has literally nothing to do with me.
And that's very important. Because it's very important to realize when some things have nothing to do with you. You know what I mean? And sort of, it helps relationships when people sort of open about their previous relationship. Yeah. Like, I was previously in a very long-term relationship. I was previously in a very short-term relationship. I was previously in an abusive one. I was totally in love. You might find someone's name tattooed on me just recently. Those things exist. Those things happen. You know what I mean? And you have to come clean as a lover to say, I am this individual. You know what I mean? I've gone through these things. And it's if I behave in a specific way, it's not necessarily a personal attack, towards you, but it's an attempt. It's something just showing itself. Yeah.
You did mention the idea of phases, or somebody is probably going through phases. How many minutes do you have?
10
minutes.
Word.
Okay. Okay. I was actually planning to read this poem, but because of time, I think I'm not going to go through it. I'm just going to go through certain parts. As this one that was performed by Katlego Chale. I offer you my spine. You spoke about the fact that in the beginning of it. Yeah. Last night, whilst making love, your name slipped out of my lover's mouth.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that song.
I do.
James. Take a guess.
Which one is that?
Oh yeah. There's that part because of it's like that's something that you don't want. It's probably mentioned in like so many songs, man. You know, that's like the saddest thing ever. Sometimes
it happens.
Yeah, I'd be in a relationship and then somebody be like, "Katlego," I'm like, bro, ke nna Kabelo. Like, who's the guy? And then I'm going to be thinking about that thing, you know? So anyway, it goes, last night whilst making love, your name slipped out of my lover's mouth like stray bullet, leaving a gaping hole inside my chest. I watched her trying to gasp back all the syllables, trying to swallow back her mistake. And then you continue to say, I watched her as she called out of existence, and all I could do was just stand there and stare, you know. And then it goes on to say, the secrets that I've always known finally punctured its way out, and its scent thickened the air. And then my favorite line, you go to say, I suppose the elephant figured, let me address myself, you know. This poem is a very long poem. I think it's available online, you know.
It's online. Yeah, it's called I offered you my spine.
I offered you my spine, you know. Obviously it's a guy has to like
come to terms,
come to terms with the fact that and also there's a part where he mentions what I was once that guy, you know. So can you talk about your headspace? What were you thinking this poem?
I was during COVID. I think a lot of writers, you know, experimented during COVID, and then again, it's really about what happens when you have invested so much into a relationship and then it crumbles just in front of you. And do you just simply give up, or do you at least try to attempt to fight for it? And that's what the guy was trying to do. He went straight to the person who's sleeping with the wife and says, "Yeah, man, your name slipped out of my lover's mouth." You know what I mean? It's just say, I'm not trying to fight. I'm old, because there's an old individual in the poem. And I'm an old person. You're a young dude. Just you go live, bruh. Live her with me. There's a second part. I don't think it's online, where the guy responds, you know, and says, this guy's in front of my door. He's explained to me about his lover, and I think I know this woman that he's talking about. In fact, I know this woman that he's talking about, and I suppose she hasn't told him that she's with child, and it's just all of that, man. I think the dynamics of relationships that I explore in both Gallery and I Offer You My Spine. I think, remind me after this. I need to record the second part, because it's there. It's an interesting part. But yeah, man.
Yeah. And also you worked with Katle, honey.
A brilliant actor.
Yeah.
Brilliant actor.
One of my favorites.
Charlie. Is a very brilliant actor, a brilliant creator, brilliant writer as well. So again, I just keep dope people close to me, man.
Yeah. I love the fact that you always mention that. How many minutes do we have, guys? 13. 13. Okay, that's dope. I want to quickly rush to the tragedy of
Samuel
Omunye. But also, I had promised people you're going to perform Sunless Father or Chaos. So I don't know if we should do that or we should just talk about them, because I love the fact that in both these poems, what you did was that you help contextualize fathers and men and masculinity. There's actually more, you know. Men don't just leave, sometimes they go through. Of course, you were not making excuses for them, but it was sort of like, let me help you understand there are so many things that happens, you know. You grow up with the father, they are always forever quiet, you know, not saying anything, or they are abusive, you know. So in Chaos, you like sort of like, you know, help contextualize those things, what actually happens. So I don't know which ones do you want to do, Chaos or Sunless Father?
You decide.
Let's go with Chaos.
Do I speak about it? Or just do Chaos?
Yeah, I think you should do it.
Okay. Just forgive me again.
I asked him on the spot.
Yeah, it takes time to. It takes time to tap into these things. I'm wearing shoes. It's a lot.
Sorry.
It's all right. It lives. It lives inside of me. I can feel it moving, eating me from inside, trying to escape. Chaos. I am a shack on fire. My insides are burning, but my skin is corrugated iron. You cannot see the flames yet. Smoke is the only evidence of my reality that somewhere inside an inferno seeks to escape. I have to bottle in these emotions, this disaster waiting to happen. I've been doing this for so long, sometimes I forget it's even there until someone tries to touch me, forgive me for my lack of tears. You see, they were the first to burn. And then my voice followed. By the time I turned 18, it was already too late. You see, as a man, I quickly learned to hold in the fire. This is why you cannot make a home out of me. This is why I am not as open. This is why I am not outspoken. I am a museum of burnt things, a gallery of ashes. I am sorry that I lied, but lying becomes the only option when people can't stand the truth. I can feel my bones burning. My skin is beginning to cave in. Even with this pressure, I have managed to hold in. I am still accountable for my brother's sins. It has been several days and I haven't seen my brother since, and I heard that his flames has broke through his skin, and those that were unfortunately close to him are victims to this inevitability. And now they've come to me, looking for clarity, telling me that I am like my brother. Trust me, I know. I will know this until I die, or blast, or whichever one comes first. I confess, I don't know how it feels like to wear a skirt. They say being a man is a privilege. What's a privilege when you're feared by the ones you're raised to protect? I've managed to cocoon this monsoon only to be told it is nothing to take pride in. Would you rather I explode? I am a shack on fire. I am a hazard. When my father left, he forgot to turn off the stove. Now this heat only explains why I am called my father's son. I've been trying to avoid what could be a squatter camp domino effect. On one shack burns, the rest follows. What were you expecting? When you gave your daughters dolls and you gave your sons guns as toys, what were you preparing them for? I am not saying that my pain is worse than yours. I'm saying that I am hurting too. And empathy becomes hard when I'm wearing a face that is hurting you. It's a catch-22. Because if I come close to you, I will burn you. Now the only option is to give you space. The problem now is I cannot promise you that my brother will do the same. All men are the same. All men are insane, trapped in a burning asylum. All men are trying to escape, and some actually escaped, and the society has suffered their rage. Now they're pointing fingers at the very monsters they create. But then again, some men are ashamed to admit that they too are afraid of their brothers. So talk to your sons. Tell them that it's okay to be afraid, that he's going to need those tears to put out their flames, because the day you tell him it is not, I swear it is the day you set his insides on fire. Chaos.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is Masai. Man, that is beautiful.
Thank you so much, man.
And I'm pretty sure this was not like one of those writing exercises like
no,
gallery.
This was a lot of work.
How true is it?
This was,
like in your personal life?
It's very true. I'm a South African male. South Africa has a problem with like male rage, male violence, male insecurity, and it is sort of bled out. But at the same time, it doesn't help to have a one-sided conversation. If you have to have an effective conversation, you have to have both sides looked at. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, because of the nature of South Africa, we don't have the privilege to have that open conversation. Because people become defensive, people speak from a traumatic experience, rightfully so. So I think that's where art and poetry nudge yourself in, allowing to balance the scale of conversation, you know what I mean? And to help both male and female, men and women, adults and children at the same time, try to balance, to have a balanced conversation. Because I was a very angry young man, you know what I mean? And I think chaos was a response to that. You know what I mean? A lot of my insecurities and my toxicity was exposed in these workshops and poetry stages, and I felt like this conversation is one-sided, and if we're going to have any effective conversation, this body of work has to come out. And after it followed, there's a lot of masculinity poetry that I wrote: Sunless Fathers, Chaos, Black Boy Magic, My New Material, Sins, Fatherless. What is it? Something. You know what I mean? There's a lot of poetry that I wrote at that time where I was literally interrogating it, but also not to defend, but also to take the conversation forward. Yeah. And that's all my work does, is to push conversation, and so that the society can move. Yeah. That's all I do in terms of my storytelling, painting, poetry, music, push conversation, allow for people to talk. Even in the tragedy of Samuel Lumunye, we might not have an opportunity to talk about it. Same thing. When people leave, they don't talk about Muga or Samuel. They talk about what these individuals are talking about. They're like, oh, what do you think the other one meant? What do you think this one was stand for? You know what I mean? These balanced conversation. That's why it's two-hander. It's balanced conversation. That's why chaos exists. That's why Black Boy Magic exists. Yeah. To try to have a balanced conversation. I always say I never try to tell the truth in my poems. I always try to be honest.
Yeah.
Honesty is not always truth. It's just how I honestly feel. I could be wrong, but it's still how I need to feel. It needs to be heard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then we move from there.
Yeah.
That's all I do.
We're not going to... How many minutes do you have? 5?
We have 1 minute. So say 50 minutes again. Oh, it's about 50 minutes.
No, it's a 1 hour and 5. I said 1 hour, 5 minutes.
Approximately 5 minutes.
No, that cast it from Mukata before
Yeah,
5
we have
minutes.
approximately
So
5
2
minutes. You can just now wrap it up in 2 minutes because this broadcast will just cut.
Okay, right. I guess, Masai, this is going to be a thank you because we don't have enough time. But I think you can close it about the idea of free will, which is one of the things that was very explored in the tragedy of Samuel Omunye. And I was thinking of something that the Oracle said to Neo in the Matrix. You did not come here to make a choice. You've already made the choice. You're here to understand why you have made the choice. And then there's another quote by, I think his name is Christopher. Let me see. Written something, one of the philosophers that I respect a lot. He says, yes, I have free will. I have no choice but to have it. And then also,
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, his name is Christopher Hitchens. You're going to love the guy.
Yeah.
And then there are 2 lines that I'm going to make sure I read them before we close. You are here to mock my scars and wave your wounds at me. And then the other one is the irony to die hungry only to become food. I was like, this is a theater play, but it's very clear. It was written by a poet and was super beautiful.
Thank you so
I
much,
enjoyed
man.
everything. And also speak about Siambonga and
James Sithole,
James Sithole, yeah.
Brilliant actors. Siambonga Mdubeki and James Sithole, the actors of The Tragedy of Samuel Omunye, written and directed by me. It's just interrogating our role in the world, in its entirety. You know what I mean? Whether our experiences were predetermined or were a result of evil choices. You know what I mean? And whether we're responding to it or we're just, being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because of his free choice or was it because of hard determinism? But so se le gore tota ke ka se bua jalo ke gore ke leboga tota go Masai Sepuru ke leboga jalo to you watching this. You're probably listening it on Spotify, you're probably watching it on YouTube. Gotta make sure gore it's available on every platform. Lina lami ke Kabelo SirGift Kgang. This is the Think in Ink podcast. Ke tsa jalo gore Masai ka itswala jalo ka gore bolela gore where do we find him, and then after it is goodbye from me.
You can find me on Google, Masai Sepuru. Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much for faith.
And cut.
And cut.